You won't believe what started with a chance encounter at a coffee shop and ended with a friendship I thought I'd lost forever being rebuilt, stronger than before. It wasn't dramatic or earth-shattering, but it was real, honest, and deeply human. If you've ever had someone disappear from your life and wondered if you'd ever find your way back to each other, then you'll understand this story. Before we dive in, let me ask, where are you watching from tonight? Drop your city in the comments below. We love knowing where our community is tuning in from around the world. Now, let me tell you what happened that autumn afternoon. It was one of those October days where the air carries that perfect crispness, where every breath feels cleaner somehow. The leaves had turned brilliant shades of amber and crimson, and they crunched satisfyingly under my feet as I walked down Maple Street. I'd been coming to this particular coffee shop for months now, ever since I'd moved back to town. It had become my refuge, a place where I could work remotely, sip overpriced lattes, and watch the world go by without being part of it. That day, I was running late for a video call. My laptop bag was slipping off my shoulder. My phone was buzzing with notifications I was ignoring, and I was mentally rehearsing what I needed to say in the meeting. I pushed through the door of the coffee shop with my shoulder, eyes already scanning for an empty table near an outlet. That's when I heard it. A laugh. Not just any laugh, but one I would have recognized anywhere, even after 7 years of silence. My head snapped up, and there, standing at the counter, was Jessica Martinez, my best friend from college. My former business partner. The person I'd shared everything with until the day our startup collapsed and took our friendship down with it. She hadn't seen me yet. She was chatting with the barista, that same animated way she always talked, hands moving expressively, her whole face lighting up. She looked different. Her hair was shorter, cut into a sleek bob, and she wore a blazer. I never would have imagined her in back when we lived in hoodies and survived on ramen. But the essence of her, that spark, was exactly the same. I froze. Every instinct told me to turn around, to leave before she noticed me, to avoid the awkwardness, the hurt, the weight of 7 years of unspoken words. But my feet wouldn't move. And then, as if she felt my stare, she turned. Our eyes met. For a moment, the entire coffee shop seemed to hold its breath. The espresso machine stopped hissing. The indie music faded into background static. It was just us, separated by 15 feet and 7 years of silence. "Amelia?" she said, her voice uncertain, like she couldn't quite believe what she was seeing. "Jessica," I managed, my voice coming out smaller than I intended. She took a step toward me, then hesitated. I could see the same war happening in her expression that was raging in my chest. The desire to run versus the need to stay, the anger versus the longing, the hurt versus the hope. I didn't know you were back in town," she said finally. "I moved back 6 months ago," I replied. "New job. Remote work. Needed a change." She nodded slowly, processing this information. The barista called out her name and she glanced back at the counter, then at me. I should grab my coffee. Right, of course. But neither of us moved. We just stood there, two people who once knew everything about each other, now strangers wearing familiar faces. "Do you—" she started, then stopped. She took a breath and tried again. "Do you have a minute? Or are you rushing somewhere?" I thought about my video call, about the excuse I could make, about how easy it would be to say I was busy and walk away. But something in her eyes stopped me. It wasn't desperation or guilt. It was something softer. Something that looked like the same question I'd been carrying for 7 years. Was it really over? "My meeting can wait 5 minutes, I said. She smiled, just a small upturn at the corners of her mouth, but it was there. 5 minutes. Okay. We grabbed our coffees and found a table near the window. The silence between us was thick, loaded with history. I wrapped my hands around my cup, feeling the warmth seep into my palms, grounding me. "You look good," she said finally. "Different but good. So do you. Very professional?" "I never thought I'd see you in business attire." She laughed, that same genuine laugh that used to fill our tiny apartment. "Yeah, well, life happened. I'm at a marketing firm now. Account manager. It's stable, which is nice. The word stable hung between us. We'd never been about stable. We'd been about dreams and risks and building something from nothing. We'd been about late nights and bold ideas and believing we could change the world. Until it all fell apart. "I'm glad you found something good," I said, and I meant it. She studied my face. "Are you?" Glad, I mean. Or is that just something we say? I looked at her directly. I'm glad, genuinely. I never wanted things to end the way they did. Her expression shifted. Me neither. The coffee shop sounds came back into focus. The hiss of steaming milk, the murmur of conversations, the clinking of cups. But between us, there was just this fragile moment of honesty. I think about that last day a lot, Jessica said quietly. The argument. The things we said, I nodded. I didn't need her to elaborate. I remembered every word. The startup had been failing for months. We'd run out of funding, lost our biggest client, and were hemorrhaging what little money we had left. We were stressed, exhausted, and desperate. And in that desperation, we'd turned on each other. She'd blamed me for being too cautious, for not taking enough risks. I'd blamed her for being reckless, for making promises we couldn't keep. We'd said cruel things, things designed to wound because we were wounded ourselves. We were scared, I said. And we took it out on each other. I told you that you'd never succeed because you were too afraid to fail, she said, her voice thick with regret. That was horrible. I didn't mean it. I told you that working with you was the biggest mistake I'd ever made, I countered. I didn't mean that either. Not really, she looked down at her coffee. I've wanted to reach out so many times over the years. I'd type out messages and delete them. I'd see something that reminded me of you and want to call. But I always chickened out. I thought maybe you hated me. I never hated you, I said softly. I was hurt. And angry. And honestly, I was ashamed. Ashamed that we'd failed. Ashamed of what I'd said. Ashamed that I'd let our friendship become collateral damage. She looked up and her eyes were glassy. Me too. All of that. The 5 minutes had stretched into 15, then 20. My video call came and went, and I didn't care. For the first time in 7 years, I was talking to my best friend, and it felt like finding a piece of myself I'd thought was lost forever. What happened after? She asked. After everything ended? I took a sip of my now lukewarm latte. I moved to Seattle. Got a corporate job doing exactly what we swore we'd never do, working for someone else, playing it safe. I spent a few years being bitter about it, then slowly started to accept it. Eventually, I realized I was good at it. Really good. I worked my way up, built a solid reputation, saved money, and then, 6 months ago, I decided I was ready to come home. Are you happy? She asked. Simple question. Complicated answer, I'm content, I said. Which is different than happy, but it's not nothing. What about you? She smiled ruefully. Similar story? I flailed for a while after the startup crashed. Took some freelance gigs that barely paid rent. Had a bit of a breakdown, if I'm honest. My sister let me crash at her place and helped me get back on my feet. Then I found this job. It's not what we dreamed about, but it's good. I'm good at it. And yeah, like you said, content. Content, I repeated. That's become our word, apparently. We both laughed, and the sound broke something open between us. The tension eased. The years of separation felt a little less heavy. Can I ask you something? Jessica said. Of course. Do you ever miss it? Not the stress or the failure, but the feeling we had when we were building something together? That sense of possibility? I considered this carefully. Every day. I miss having a partner who understood my vision before I even finished explaining it. I miss the brainstorming sessions at 2 a.m. I miss believing that anything was possible. I miss you, her breath caught. I miss you too. So much. The autumn sunlight streaming through the window cast golden patterns on our table. Outside, people walked by with their shopping bags and their dogs and their normal, uncomplicated lives. Inside, 2 women sat with cooling coffee and warming hearts, slowly finding their way back to each other. I know we can't just pick up where we left off, I said. Too much time has passed. We're different people now. But maybe, Jessica said carefully, we could start fresh? Not as business partners or who we used to be, but as who we are now. I looked at her, really looked at her. The 7 years showed in small ways. Fine lines around her eyes that spoke of laughter and stress. A confidence in her posture that hadn't been there before. A wariness that came from being hurt and learning to protect yourself. But underneath all that, she was still Jessica. Still the woman who'd stayed up all night with me before our first pitch meeting, who'd celebrated every small victory like it was the World Cup, who'd known exactly what I needed to hear when I was doubting myself. I'd like that, I said. A fresh start. She reached across the table, and after a moment's hesitation, I took her hand. It was a simple gesture, but it carried the weight of forgiveness, of hope, of choosing to try again. "Same time next week?" she asked. "Assuming you don't ghost me after this," I laughed. "Same time next week. I promise." And we did meet the next week. And the week after that. Slowly, carefully, we rebuilt what we'd lost. It wasn't easy. There were moments when old hurts resurfaced, when we had to navigate conversations about the past with honesty and grace. There were times when I wondered if we were forcing something that couldn't be repaired, but there were more moments of laughter, of shared understanding, of remembering why we'd been friends in the first place. We told each other about the years we'd missed. She told me about her failed engagement and how she'd learned she was stronger than she thought. I told her about my father's illness and how it had changed my perspective on what mattered. We discovered we'd both taken up painting, terrible, therapeutic painting that we did alone in our apartments. We compared photos of our disasters and laughed until we cried. We introduced each other to the new favorite restaurants we'd found, the books we'd read, the shows we were obsessed with. 3 months after that first coffee shop encounter, we were having dinner at a Thai restaurant downtown. The conversation had been flowing easily, jumping from topic to topic the way it used to. "I have something to tell you," Jessica said, setting down her fork. Her expression was serious, and I felt a flutter of anxiety. "Okay. I've been thinking about leaving my job," she said. "Don't get me wrong, it's been good to me. But lately I've felt that old restlessness coming back. That need to build something, to take a risk, to feel that possibility again." I nodded slowly. "I understand that feeling." She took a breath. "I have an idea. A good one, I think. And I've been working on it in my spare time. Building a business plan, doing market research, all the things we should have done better the first time." "That's amazing, Jess," I said, genuinely happy for her. "What's the idea?" She hesitated. "Before I tell you, I need you to know that I'm not asking you for anything. This isn't me trying to rope you into something or pressure you. I'm just sharing because we're friends again, and I'm excited about it." "Okay," I said, curious now. "It's a consultancy for small businesses that are struggling. We'd help them with everything from financial planning to marketing to operations. The idea came from our own experience, all the mistakes we made, all the lessons we learned the hard way. We could help others avoid those pitfalls." She pulled out her phone and showed me her notes, her preliminary research, her projected costs. As I scrolled through, I felt something stirring in my chest. That old excitement, that sense of possibility. "This is really solid," I said. "You've thought this through." "I've had time to learn," she said. "To grow up, honestly. I'm not the same person who jumped into things without thinking. But I'm also not willing to play it safe forever." I handed her phone back. "You're going to do great with this," she smiled, but there was something wistful in it. "Thanks, I wish—" She stopped herself. "What?" "Nothing." "Never mind, Jess, come on." "We promised honesty," she sighed. "I wish we could do it together. Not because I need you, but because I miss working with you. I miss having that partnership. But I understand if that chapter is closed." "I really do." I sat back in my chair, my mind racing. The sensible part of me, the part that had learned to be cautious, was screaming warnings. "Remember what happened last time. Remember the pain. Don't risk this friendship you've just rebuilt." But there was another voice, quieter but insistent. The voice that remembered how good it felt to create something with someone who understood you completely. The voice that had been slowly withering in my comfortable corporate job. The voice that whispered, "What if this time could be different?" "Can I think about it?" I asked. Jessica's eyes widened. "Really? I mean, yes, of course. Take all the time you need. And if the answer is no, that's completely fine. It won't change anything between us." "I promise I'll think about it seriously," I said. The real answer, not just the safe answer. I spent the next 2 weeks in turmoil. I made lists of pros and cons. I consulted my savings account and my retirement plan. I talked to my sister, who reminded me that I'd been complaining about being unfulfilled for years. I talked to my therapist, who asked me what I was really afraid of. The answer, when I finally admitted it to myself, wasn't failure. I'd failed before and survived. It was losing Jessica again. Our friendship was still new and fragile, rebuilt from ruins. Working together could destroy it all over again, but avoiding risk altogether meant avoiding life. I called Jessica and asked her to meet me at the coffee shop where we'd reconnected. It felt right, somehow, to have this conversation where everything had begun again. She was already there when I arrived, sitting at the same table by the window. She looked nervous, twisting a napkin between her fingers. I sat down across from her. "I've thought about your proposal." "And?" She looked terrified, hopeful, braced for disappointment. "I have some conditions," I said. Her eyebrows shot up. "Okay. First, we go into this as equal partners. True equals. We make decisions together, and if we can't agree, we have a system in place for how to handle that." She nodded. "Absolutely. Second, we set clear boundaries between our business relationship and our friendship. We schedule regular check-ins where we talk about how we're doing emotionally, not just how the business is doing." "Smart," she agreed. Third, we agree that if things start going south, we communicate instead of attacking. We be honest about our fears and frustrations before they build up into explosions. Yes. All of that, yes. I took a breath. And fourth, we acknowledge that this might fail. We might lose money. We might face setbacks. And if that happens, we promise not to lose each other again. The friendship comes first. Always. Jessica's eyes were shining now. "Always," she repeated. "So," I said, extending my hand across the table, "I'm in. Let's do this. Together." She grabbed my hand, then pulled me into a hug right there in the middle of the coffee shop. We laughed and cried simultaneously, drawing stares from other customers, not caring at all. "We're really doing this?" she asked, pulling back. "We're really doing this," I confirmed. "That was 8 months ago. I won't lie and say it's been perfect. We've had disagreements. There was one particularly tense week where I thought we were heading for disaster again. We'd lost a potential client we'd been counting on, and I'd seen that old panic flicker in Jessica's eyes. But this time, instead of lashing out, she said, "I'm scared. Can we talk about it?" And we did. We talked through our fears and our backup plans and our contingencies. We reminded each other that we'd prepared for setbacks this time, that one lost client wasn't the end of the world. We reminded each other that we were in this together. The business is growing, slowly, steadily, sustainably. We have 6 regular clients now, and we're actually making enough to pay ourselves modest salaries. We've hired our first employee, a bright recent graduate who reminds us of our younger selves. But more than the business success, what matters is that we found our way back to each other. We didn't just resurrect an old friendship. We built a new one, stronger and wiser and more honest than before. Last week, we were working late at our tiny rented office space. It was past 9 and we were both exhausted, running on takeout and determination. Jessica leaned back in her chair and groaned. "I'm too old for all-nighters," she said. "We're not pulling an all-nighter," I replied. "We're going home in 20 minutes. Look at us, being responsible adults." I laughed. "Character growth." She looked at me then, her expression soft. "You know what? I'm glad everything fell apart 7 years ago." I raised my eyebrows. "Really? Don't get me wrong, it sucked. It hurt like hell. But if it hadn't happened, we wouldn't be here now. We wouldn't have learned what we needed to learn. We wouldn't be these versions of ourselves." I considered this. "You think everything happens for a reason?" "No," she said. "I think terrible things happen, and we decide whether to let them destroy us or teach us." "We chose to let it teach us," I smiled. "When did you get so wise?" "Therapy. Lots of therapy." We packed up our things and walked out into the cool evening air. The streets were quieter now, the autumn night carrying the promise of winter. "Same time tomorrow?" Jessica asked. "Same time tomorrow," I agreed. As I walked home, I thought about chance encounters and second chances. I thought about how easy it would have been to walk out of that coffee shop 7 years of silence intact. I thought about how much I would have missed. Sometimes the people we lose aren't gone forever. Sometimes they're just waiting for the right moment to come back. Sometimes we have to be brave enough to rebuild what we broke. And sometimes, just sometimes, the second version of something is even better than the first. Not because it's perfect, but because it's earned. Built on forgiveness and growth and the kind of love that chooses to stay. That's what I found in that coffee shop on Maple Street. Not just a lost friendship, but a new beginning. And honestly, that's worth more than any business success could ever be. Before I close this story, I want you to know something important. If you've lost someone who mattered to you, a friend, a colleague, a person who once knew all your dreams, it's not always too late. Time doesn't have to mean the end. Sometimes it just means you both needed space to become who you were meant to be. Reach out. Send the message. Make the call. Walk into the coffee shop even when every